Hello, I'm Lara. Today I'm going to interview a passionate entrepreneurship educator, a connected and community-minded participant in local, regional, and national entrepreneurship ecosystems. She's highly motivated, self-starter, team player, problem solver, and fast learner who seeks to discover effective and new methods and is constantly looking outside the box for ways to better serve students and other stakeholders in higher education. Assistant Director of Entrepreneurship Center at Ball State University, Krystal Geyer. How are you? Good afternoon.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Who is Krystal Geyer, and why do you have this massive passion for entrepreneurship?
It's a great question. So I started out in entrepreneurship kind of completely by accident, actually. I was hired as someone who was passionate about working with students.
Yeah.
And then they told me I was going to help students start companies.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm completely unqualified to do this.
Yes.
Once I learned more about what entrepreneurship was and what it meant and what the process was, I realized I'd been doing it all my life, and so had my family.
Mm-hmm.
So really, I look at entrepreneurship as starting anything, not necessarily a business, but it could be starting a club, a nonprofit, an organization, a meetup.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm so passionate about it because when I graduated from my first master's, I applied for 180 jobs
Mm-hmm.
all across the country.
180 jobs?
180 positions.
Uh-huh.
And I got nothing.
Uh-huh.
And so I began to realize that the economy is just not what it used to be, and the job market isn't where you get a degree and you get a job and you have that job forever. So I really feel strongly about empowering my students that if they can't find the job that they want, to go out and to create the job that they want.
Yes. So there is always an issue today between being an employee or being an entrepreneur, because as you know, by being an employee, you will have a steady paid job that allow you to be safe, secure, and to cover your financial expenses or family life. But what do you think about this thinking?
I would argue that that's also not necessarily true. There are layoffs. There is a ton happening with automation. Many jobs I don't think are as safe as they once were. And so I think having the skills that if you are in the unfortunate position of losing your job, having the skills to be able to start something, maybe out of necessity as opposed to out of passion, I think is very important. So I don't know that jobs are as safe as they may seem. And I also think that, especially for young people, taking the opportunity to try to start a business while they have very few risks before they maybe have a family and a home, and the risk is a lot greater, and the risk of loss is a lot greater.
So you have to measure the risk before starting the new business.
Yes.
Yes.
And so for some
to
people,
assume what will gonna happen in the future.
Yeah.
So how do you motivate your students about being an entrepreneur?
That's a great question. Motivating young people can be very, very difficult.
Yeah.
So I encourage
especially in our era.
Absolutely. There are infinite distractions.
Yeah.
So I motivate them either around one of two ways, either through problem solving, identifying a problem that they face or someone they love faces, and trying to identify a business around that, or around their passion.
Solving problems.
Solving some sort of a problem and turning that into a monetizable business. Or around their passion. What are the things that they would do for free, and is there a way that they can monetize that?
Yes.
And so it's less about sitting down and saying, I'm going to think of a really good idea today. It's more of looking out into your day-to-day experience and seeing, this is something that I might be able to solve, or this is something I love doing.
Yes.
How can I turn that into my career?
So you help them to discover their passions.
Yes.
Yeah.
I try.
So what are the best business startup ideas that for young entrepreneurs to work on?
I think anything that can be started or prototyped in less than 3 months is a good place to start. I would never tell someone you don't have the skills or you can't do that. And I'd never tell someone what is a good idea or a bad idea. Because I don't think anyone has the ability to say definitively this is a good idea or a bad idea. Instead, I tell them, go out and find a market. And if you can find 5 or 10 people who are willing to pay for this, that's how you know you have something.
But how to experiment that people at the end will really buy the products?
Yeah, so I tell them to go out and try to sell something, get pre-sales, or set up a landing page where people can enter their email address.
Yes.
And so before you even have a product, you can start to test and to gauge people's interest.
Yeah.
And so I think something that can be quickly prototyped and brought to market, something that is timely, and something that consumers can immediately get their hands on.
So should they avoid some ideas?
I mean, I don't, that's a really great question. I mean, they shouldn't try to do kidney surgery if they don't have the skills to do so. I mean, anything that puts someone else in danger or something that requires a particular permit or permissions or licensure, I would discourage them from doing that. But otherwise, I think as long as they educate themselves on the industry and take the small steps and not put anybody at risk, then
so if one of your students has a great idea and he wants to implement it, so what will be the steps that he should follow in order to make his dream a reality?
Sure.
Should he start by writing a detailed business plan, buying the equipment, asking for a loan from a bank,
none of those things.
So tell us.
Yes. So the very first thing I would say is to identify what your minimum viable product is.
Okay.
It's very easy to say this is what I want my good or service to look like in 5 or 10 years, but what does it look like right now? What is the very basic idea of the company?
Yeah.
And how can you start to establish that? And then I would tell them to go out and get customer validation. Talk to 50 to 100 customers to find out, are you solving a problem? Is this a big enough problem that they're willing to pay for it? And all of that can be done for cheap or free. So it's
asking the customers.
Asking the customers.
Of customers.
Absolutely. Making sure before you spend all the time writing a business plan or before you go trying to ask for money, it's really important to understand what are we trying to do? What is the end goal? And then taking small steps to get there. As opposed to, I mean, you can write a beautiful business plan, but if the execution's not there and the market's not there, then it does no good. You can have, we see companies go broke all the time. You can have $1 million, and if you don't know what you're spending it on and you don't have that end goal in mind, it is also, well, it's not worthless, but it's not going to get you in the steps that you want to go.
Okay, so starting by step by step.
Step by step, taking very small steps and making sure that you're meeting customer needs.
To fail it cheap at the end.
Fail cheap, fail early, fail often, and fail cheap.
Yeah. So do you think that does one need a formal education to be an entrepreneur?
That's the biggest argument. As an entrepreneurship educator, I would like to say yes.
Yes.
But history tells us that that's not necessarily true. What I think having formal education does is provide you with a huge network. It provides you with an excellent backup plan. Having a business degree is a wonderful backup plan if your startup or your business fails. I don't, it's clearly not necessary because we see college dropouts be successful all the time. But I do think it provides you with things, skills and opportunities that you wouldn't get elsewhere.
So are certain personalities more likely to be entrepreneurs than others?
I don't think so. And the reason I don't think so is because an entrepreneur can take many forms. And so a lot of people think, I can't be an entrepreneur because I'm an introvert or I'm not comfortable presenting. That doesn't mean that somebody on the product development team isn't as valuable as the person going out and fundraising or pitching or presenting the business. And again, going back to what I said is I don't think that necessarily entrepreneurship is reserved only for businesses. And so someone could start a swing dancing club. And I think that is entrepreneurship as well. And so I think it's open to anyone of any personality type. There are certain skills or personalities that lend themselves to different aspects of the business, but I don't think it's reserved for just one type of person.
So what are the most personality traits in the personality to be an entrepreneur?
You have to be a self-starter. There is no one who's going to come get you out of bed to say, you need to do this today. Someone who's comfortable with a certain element of chaos and uncertainty, because we don't know where the market's going to go, and we don't know whether something's going to be successful or not. Someone who is dedicated and passionate about what they're working on, because there's no 9 to 5, and there's no leaving work at work as an entrepreneur.
And having the charisma also at the same time.
To a certain extent, yeah. Whether that's, going out and fundraising or trying to recruit people to your team, having the right messaging, I think, is also important.
To be able to convince others by this idea. So, what about the challenges that face entrepreneurs here in the state?
In the Midwest, we're known as flyover states, and so there's not a ton of venture capital. There's not a ton of tech talent a lot of times. I do think that that's changing, and I also think that with so many advances in technology, it's a wonderful opportunity to work remote. So talent doesn't necessarily have to come from here, but also talent doesn't need to leave here. Other challenges, I think it's changing quite a bit, but like you mentioned, there is kind of a stigma of why would you take the riskier path and try to start something as opposed to going out and getting a regular 9-to-5 job that's more secure. So changing that mindset a little bit can be a challenge. And then just, identifying the problems and making sure that you do have a product market fit, I think is a big risk always for entrepreneurs. Because the way that I experience the world is going to be different than how you experience the world. And so making sure that your customers really need.
What about the financing? Is it good to hear you can access to finance easily?
No. It's a little bit more difficult. Like I said, as a flyover state, people think you have to go to one of the coasts to get funding. There are several emerging angel funds and venture capitalist funds. So it's growing in the Midwest, but it's not as readily available as it might be on one of the coasts.
They look at the social values when they want to provide the fund. As an entrepreneur, they look about the social values and the idea of the entrepreneur.
Every fund is going to be different. Some people are looking for high growth tech companies. Some are focused more on the social value and does this have some sort of social good. So it really just depends on where they're directing their fundraising.
At the end, they want the profit.
At the end, there has to be some value for someone, yes.
So how do you define entrepreneurship in your words?
I define entrepreneurship as creating value from where there was none.
Great.
And so whether that's economic value, social value, emotional value, just creating value from where there wasn't.
Great. Krystal Geyer, so thank you so much for this interview, and you're really a highly motivated person. Thank you.
Thank you very much.